Welcome to a new story on newcomers to Trailblazers. Hey Trailblazers, ready for another dose of inspiration? Today we are meeting someone who literally changed my life in Canada. Okay, maybe not literally, but her impact has been extremely monumental. So buckle up because we are about to meet Khristine Cariño, a trailblazer extraordinaire. Khristine arrived in Canada in 2005 as a postdoctoral fellow at the prestigious University of British Columbia, UBC. But life, as it does, threw some curveballs, and her career took a fascinating turn into the world of non-profit development. Now, Christine's journey wasn't always smooth sailing. As a woman of color in North America, she faced her share of racism, discrimination, underestimation of her skills, but Christine is anything but ordinary. Instead of letting these challenges hold her back, she decided to build something incredible: inclusive spaces for people of color and leaders, fostering communities that celebrate belonging every single day. Hold on, because Christine's list of accomplishments is longer than my grocery list after forgetting to check the fridge. She is the executive director of Mabuhay House, a Google Women Tech Makers ambassador, a board member extraordinaire of Vices, and the president of Tech to Step Network Canada, empowering women plus in tech. Okay, let's take a deep breath in with me. This introduction might need its own standing ovation, but before we get started, I have to add one more thing. Christine, not only are you a phenomenal leader and a change maker, but you're also my very first mentor in Canada. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So without further ado, let's welcome the amazing Khristine Cariño to the show. Hey Khristine, how are you?
Hey, Manisha, thanks for inviting me. This is an exciting opportunity to tell my story and hopefully to inspire others.
Of course, you're going to inspire others. There is no doubt about it. Let's rewind. You landed in Canada as a postdoctoral fellow. I love you and all, but I don't understand what that means, right? I had to Google that one. So, can you break it down for our listeners? What exactly does a postdoctoral fellow do, and how did you become one of those academic rock stars?
Oh, a postdoctoral fellowship is that period between a PhD and assistant professorship. It's basically an apprenticeship opportunity with a leading expert in the research field that you choose. So when I came to Canada in 2005, it was about 3 years after I got my PhD from Tokyo University in dental health sciences. And I contacted Dr. Rosamond Harrison, who used to be the head of pediatric dentistry at UBC and a leading expert in children's health. So what happened was that when I was in Japan, I needed a paper, and I reached out to this Canadian professor who was working on immigrant health in Vancouver. And to my astonishment, I got response the next day. This was so unusual because when you reach out to professors in North America, they usually take longer time to respond if they even respond. So it was really astounding to me that Professor Rosamond Harrison at that time sent this email right away.
So cold email changed your life.
Yes, and then this started what in quotation mark a relationship with her that eventually blossomed when she came to Japan for an international conference. It's the International Association for Dental Research conference. And fortunately at that time, she saw me accept an award for the work that I was doing as a PhD student, and that stuck in her mind. But during that conference, we were not able to meet in person. Fast forward 2 years later, I reached out to her and asked if there were postdoctoral opportunities here. And she remembered me from our correspondence and from that image of me getting that award. And she, again, quickly sent back this reply saying, "Oh, I was welcome here. There was so much work to do with immigrant children." I think what's most important to note is that postdoctoral fellowship was approved by one signature. She found funding for me, and that became my passport to come to Canada.
Wow.
And also to note that for many Filipinos or even Southeast Asians in general, it's quite difficult to get into a North American university with full funding and the honors of a postdoctoral fellowship. There's very, very, very few.
Statistically low.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you are one of the statistically improbable cases. That's amazing.
I think when I look back also, I had so much confidence in myself, and that made a difference. Reaching out, knowing that I had a body of work at that time as a PhD student, backing my request. On the other hand, too, there was this person at the other end in Canada who was willing to gamble on this really unknown person
Yeah.
with very small accomplishments compared to herself. And when I reflect on that particular instance, that has actually been my guiding light for what I do now, for what I have been doing in the past several years and continue to do so, which is to mentor other women in return, and then also opening spaces for them so that they can, widen their horizons as well.
That's beautiful. I'm one of the women she's talking about, just so you know.
When you sincerely help other people with just, like what I did, just really information and providing this information about scope and mosaic, and then encouraging Manisha to get to look into nonprofit volunteering. So listeners, you never know your impact. You would never know you're even a mentor. And thank you, Manisha, for letting me know today.
So, because you and I have known each other for some time now, often mentioned higher benchmarks for people of color, especially in this continent. Can you share some real life examples of how you experienced this?
Yeah, definitely. So I came from the Philippines, and coming from the Philippines, we've been colonized by Spain for 365 years. And then after that, for a little while, the Americans introduced their system, educational system. Basically, that's why many Filipinos of my generation are English speaking. We have navigated our education through, which was patterned or based after the United States educational system. We were colonized a little by the Japanese during World War II. But again, the greatest influence is really the United States of America. Our movies used to be a lot of Hollywood. I grew up with Hollywood. So, and we have an air base in my city, Baguio City. It's up in the mountains, and the United States military has a rest and recreation stop there. Aside from that, we were surrounded by a lot of mountains. It has gold and silver and copper, and the United States exploited all these natural resources through the multinational companies. And with that too comes colonial mentality. Many Filipinos, including me, that it is actually the goal of many families for their children to land a job in North America, particularly United States, and a little lately Canada. That's why we have a lot of Filipino nurses coming over. And so that was how I was growing up. I was growing up in a kind of environment where the aspiration is for us to be brown Americans. And so I came to Canada, although I have many relatives in the Philippines. I chose Canada because I thought it was more multicultural, but also with the mindset that, hey, I'm coconut, white inside, brown outside.
Okay.
And so I thought I would be able to navigate this space, professional space here, much better than other professionals who do not come from English-speaking country, for example. But then I realized that Canada is not really as multicultural as it has been propagandized. My experience in one particular organization where I gave my all, I contributed a lot to this expansion of the organization, virtually built teams across the country, changed the event program to be more responsive to women in STEM needs. I was doing a lot of work that was being recognized within and without of the organization. However, when I aspired for the highest level position, I was surprised that my contributions, my significant contributions, were not really enough to justify my aspiration for that particular role. But compared to other white women who were aspiring for those roles and did not do much, they were given more priority. And in fact, also being pushed to occupy the highest role, even if they have not shown the level of contribution that I had, which was so disappointing because it was an organization that was espousing inclusion, diversity, and equity. So I guess what I want to say is that one thing that I've learned with that experience is if you are not being appreciated in a particular organization that is white-founded, white-led, then just get out as soon as possible and find those spaces that actually celebrate true representation, true inclusion, true diversity. Find communities where people really celebrate other people, accept them as they are, not just thinking they're a white piece of blank paper that has to be filled, but actually people who bring in experiences and expertise from overseas. Find people who celebrate you when you achieve something and who do not pull you down, who are not overloaded with envy, but celebrate you and recognize you as you are. And where those communities do not exist, or where you cannot find people or groups that share the values that you live for, then create your own community.
That's what you did.
Yes, that's what I did.
Okay. So, in other words, the idea of being cut down to size to stand out is referred to as tall poppy syndrome. Does this happen in the real world? And if so, how do you navigate it?
Oh, yes. There's actually a Canadian study that shows tall poppy syndrome is prevalent in many workspaces and also other non-workspaces. So what it is that when a person, usually a woman, achieves a lot and then rises, the tendency is for other poppies to actually pull that woman back to size, so everybody will just be at the same level. And how that affects organizations is that if we don't recognize that some people are super achievers, and if we don't hang on to them, then the organization will stagnate. Right? If we are talking about excellence, if we aspire for excellence, if we tell our people to aspire for greatness, but when they do and we cut them, then it definitely is detrimental to the organization.
I think in a way, I have also experienced tall poppy syndrome. There was a time when I was a rising star in an organization, not a non-profit, a for-profit organization. I was doing real good work. I was contributing in a way. I was standing out, right? And there was a time when my manager reached out and said, when my leader started reaching out to me directly for work, that is when my manager, started having all these insecurities. Why are you not keeping me in the loop? Why are you doing things by yourself? Who gave you the authority to do this? And all of this. I think that's how tall poppy syndrome begins, and it leads to various conversations. When that happened, the first thing I felt was disappointment. But along with disappointment, I felt like I was not valued enough. The ideas that I bring, the culture that I bring, the values that I bring was not valued enough, right? And if you feel that way at all, and if you don't know how to navigate it, I would say start navigating by asking questions. Ask them, why do you feel that way? People feel insecurity for a reason. What is that reason behind their insecurity? And let's come to a place together to identify, okay, so this is making you feel insecure. Maybe we can find a way to work on this together in a way that it does not make you feel insecure, but I also accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. So that way, it's easy. I wouldn't say it's easy to navigate, but it's a first step towards navigation when it comes to handling tall poppy syndrome. That is, in my opinion.
Yeah, but usually when you're in a situation, you don't even know that it's happening until it's too late, and then you just realize that you're being cut already.
Yeah.
But definitely, now that we know that tall poppy syndrome is out there, and we see the moment that we see it rear its ugly head.
Self-awareness, people, self-awareness. Okay. You have achieved incredible things, Khristine. But do you ever feel that imposter syndrome creeping in? We have spoken about tall poppy. Let's not that I want to speak about medical terminologies here, but have you experienced imposter syndrome creeping in, the voice that says, hey, I don't deserve this, they will find out, what if I'm doing it wrong? And how do you silence that voice?
That's a very interesting question, because I thought for many years that I don't suffer from imposter syndrome. I thought I'm great and that I deserve to be at the table. But mind you, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Pinoys on Parliament. It's a national conference for Filipino youth in Ottawa. And I was invited to be one of the panelists. Apparently, I am considered a success story and a trailblazer in the Filipino community. And I was up on stage listening to the other panelists. One is who happens to work on Parliament itself, and then we have another community leader who's really put in so many years of volunteer work, and then another one who's just had an award-winning recognition of her new venture, a cake pastry business. And then I was on stage sharing my story, listening to the other panelists' stories, and then there was all these young Filipinos from universities, new professionals who are the cream of the crop in Canada. And I suddenly felt very small. I was thinking, is my story even a success story? Like, what are these people getting from me? Because did they even need me on that stage? Because even though within the audience, there were many success stories. And then, so I left with that imposter syndrome, went home, and then shared with my daughter, who was attending the conference. She's 17. And I said, I felt very small at that time. I was even questioning, why was I on that panel? What was my success story? And then she told me, but Mom, you really deserve to be on the panel. I was so proud, listening to you. And then she started telling me why I was a success. And I guess one way to, when imposter syndrome creeps in, is to get some validation from people within your circle. Remember those women I told that you would surround yourself with, who celebrate you. Get back to them. Another thing too that I've been doing is as much as I can, keeping some emails, messages, or even LinkedIn recommendations that say how great I am. And then look back when I'm down and feeling low and just second guessing myself and my abilities. Read this, and then just realize how much impact I am actually making them.
That is so true. In fact, I some people would say that you don't work for validation, you work for yourself. But I beg to differ. You work for validation of those who believe in you. You work for inspiring those who believe in you. And that is okay. If you need the space to be validated, there is no shame in asking for it. Just ask for it. And if that is going to let go of your imposter syndrome, oh, please, by all means, do it. Yeah.
And you don't even have to ask. Like many times, and I think for us who ask for favors, or for help from other people, when this help is given, maybe it's a great way to give back and say thank you to this person by writing a small note. And who would know that this right now, that help from the other person has impact on you, but that small note in the future will have impact to the person who has helped you when they're dealing with imposter syndrome.
Yeah. True. So it's International Women's Day / month, Women's Month. Can you share some practical tips on how we can uplift other women and celebrate their success stories?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, because during International Women's Day, we really want to celebrate those people who are creating impact in the community and helping change the lives of others. So what I've been doing in the past years, not only during International Women's Day, is to recognize these trailblazing women by nominating them for awards. For example, I'm so obsessed with the top 25 Canadian Immigrant Awards. And in the past 5 years, I make it a point to identify, usually through LinkedIn, outstanding women, and then reach out to them, ask them like, oh, have you been nominated for the top 25? And astoundingly, 99% of them get back to me and say, oh, I'm not deserving. OMG.
The imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And then eventually, I do the pep talk and tell them how much. I've even nominated people who don't know me, but I've seen their feed on LinkedIn, and then I go and check their university or institutional web pages for further learn what their work is, and then I just reach out and tell them how I appreciate and how much their work has and their postings have actually influenced me. So that's what I do. Yearly, I nominate people to the top 25 Canadian Immigrant Awards, and then I'm also extending the nominations to other awards. So I guess what I'm telling our listeners is that when you are admiring women out there, even those people who you don't know personally, but whose work has impact on you, let's recognize them. Let's nominate them for these awards. Let's celebrate them. When they win these awards, we also win with them.
You grow by growing others.
Yes.
Conversely,
we also recognize that many women don't post a lot on LinkedIn or are not even on LinkedIn. And these are the people who are in the background working, making it possible for trailblazers to be out there visible and achieving. And I'm talking about domestic workers, the nannies,
childcare.
Yes, who provide the much needed childcare. Without these people, without these women, we who are trailblazing, who are out there, who are getting paid a lot, who are advancing professionally, are really indebted to these women. So on International Women's Day as well, I would like to recognize the women, childcare givers, domestic helpers, and everyone who's working in the background, lifting our trailblazers up.
That is so true, in fact. So, we have spoken about uplifting women. I would like to go to the other side of it. Power and leadership mostly goes hand in hand. What does responsible and inclusive leadership mean to you?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. For me, leadership is stewardship. Many people usually forget when they attain leadership roles that leadership means taking care of an organization, taking care of a community, representing this, the needs of that community as best as they can, and addressing these needs. Power corrupts. And usually when you have the power, you just want to hold on to it. And I think this is where leaders lose their compass when it becomes about them. It becomes about being able to acquire that influence and being selective in who gets to take part on the leadership table, or who gets to benefit from whatever programs that organization has. So for me, power is multiplicative when it is shared.
Yeah.
So for me, leadership is not about cultivating followers. It's about helping develop other leaders so you could gracefully exit and then bring in new leaders with new idea, new energy, new drive. There's something called founder syndrome, especially in nonprofits where, this one person or maybe a small group of people have this bright idea of wanting to create impact in communities and then create the nonprofit and then want to hold on to that nonprofit for life, be the president for life. And this is called founder syndrome. The best thing actually for organizations to thrive is when there's a good leadership succession strategy. There are new ideas that come in, new blood. So what I'm saying is that as leaders, we should be aware that leadership is stewardship. It is not it should not be a forever role within an organization. But if we really love the causes that we advocate for, the best thing is to have a leadership succession strategy that brings in young, new, energetic leaders. And to do that, we identify aspiring leaders, we support them, we provide resources for leadership development, such as, again, I'm going to refer to the Mosaic School program. That's an amazing program introducing newcomer immigrants to leadership within Canada.
I think the founder syndrome that you referred to not just exists in nonprofit, but also exists in for-profit organizations. People who are founders and they have built the organization from scratch, they have a lot of pride, which is important, right? They should carry a lot of pride because they have built something from scratch. But that does not mean they are going to build forever. There is going to come a time where you have to let other people lead. When I say let other people lead, also cultivate the people who will be capable or make them capable enough so that they can lead. Holding on to the baton is not going to be efficient in the long run. It could be efficient in the short run, probably, on holding on to the power. But when you grow as an organization, even for-profit organization, when it comes to board of directors, most nonprofits have board of directors, most for-profit organizations have boards. The reason behind having board of directors is dissipation of power.
Yes.
It is not dissipation of responsibility. Let's be very clear about that. Founder syndrome, people with founder syndrome, sometimes they believe that it is dissipation of responsibility. Hey, I have given you this work, I've given you this work. No, it is not. It is dissipation of power. And the difference between power and responsibility has to be understood, acknowledged, and applied on an everyday life. And that's how leadership would succeed.
Why do you think that it's not a delegation of responsibility?
Okay, this is a very good question. I would like to backtrack a little bit. People don't work for the leader. Leader works for the people.
Oh, yes. Servant leaders.
Yeah. So when I tell my team, I always tell them, I'm not going to give you work. It is your responsibility to get work done for yourself. You have a question, you come back to me. That is again your responsibility. You want to grow. You come back to me. You come and bug me. You reverse micromanage me. I am happy with that. But I don't expect me to follow up with you. You're basically their responsibility, right? They want growth. They have to own their growth.
Oh, yes.
As a leader, you can only facilitate growth.
Yeah, definitely. I agree in many aspects of life. You can, as my favorite saying is, you can only lead the horse to the water. You cannot force it to drink. Those are great points, Manisha. And also for leaders, it's also realizing that you don't have all the skills, all the attributes, and all the answers, right?
Yeah.
It's realizing that you have a team, a leadership team, and you look at the strengths of the people on that leadership team. As for, it is important for nonprofit board to ensure that the directors are aligned in values and agree with the vision and mission. So there is no question about the work that has to be done. It's always centered on the vision and the mission.
Yeah.
As president of Tech to Step, I actually want a flat leadership. Not hierarchical. Because I recognize that the people who are joining the leadership team already have the experience.
And the skill set.
From where they come from. I think for me, it's from the Canadian context, it's just providing this platform for them to be able to contribute in this society by building communities that help newcomer immigrants thrive. It is my hope for Check to Step that it will be a strong incubator for thought leaders, so that we will be able, for thought leaders and for world-class nonprofit leaders, so that we would be able to ensure that newcomer women in tech are fully supported when they come to Canada, that they're able to land jobs, that they're supported in their career development. So my three key takeaways as an immigrant in Canada is, one, you have to build relationships. You have to build your network. And the way to do that is to ensure you're just not asking all the time, but you're also returning, whether to the people that you've asked help from or paying back to others who need your help. That's one. Build your network, build your relationship, and build your trust. In terms of encountering racism, discrimination, bullying, and harassment because of your skin color or creed or whatever, don't be silenced. Tell your story. I know in many organizations it's difficult to
raise an opinion.
Yes, or even to accuse or bring out, seek redress for racist incidents, and usually organizations will silence you. Do not be silenced. Own your story. Learn from this racist incidents, and ensure that too, as women of color, that you do not participate in racist behavior against your fellow women of color. Call out these instances. And then third would be, you really mentioned that I was mentor for you, and that really struck me. And I also realized that mentorship is not enough. It is more important to champion and sponsor other people, other women of color into the spaces that you already occupy, into decision-making tables, into spaces with power. The more women of color are in this decision-making, policy creating tables, the better it is for our concerns to be addressed. We really need representation. So share the stewardship, share the limelights, share the spotlights, share the spaces.
So true. Hey listeners, if you're based out of Vancouver, we welcome you to the walk that we are going to start for the season, which is on March 15th, 5:30 p.m. near the Science World, and Khristine would be the mentor for the walk.
Yeah, so exciting. And on that note,
on the other note, what?
Are we closing?
Yes, we are closing. It is time. We are closing. So thank you so much, Khristine. You have been an amazing guest today. You're inspiring, and we are thrilled to have you here. We had an incredible time with you as you shared your journey and valuable tips. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, we encourage you to do so. We release episodes bi-weekly, except for March. We are releasing one every week and can be found on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Do not forget to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for more exciting updates. Take care and ciao.
Bye.
Bye.